Trump, as Chris Minahan says, successfully purged MAGA of everybody but Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, and Ben Shapiro, following the release of the Epstein files and the launch of the Iran war. And now he's losing them for daring to stand up to Israel. So Ben Shapiro at the start of the war was saying Trump was uniquely testosterone-filled president. This is a dude with cojones, he said. All right. Yeah, well, he did have, I think, more than his fair share of testosterone, which is why he was hanging around with Jeffrey Epstein for so long. MAGA knows U.S. support for Israel is imploding. They want to bleed us out before our special relationship comes to an end. Sane leadership decides America must no longer exist as a colony of Israel. I don't see any politicians saying that. That's what the American people think, but I don't see any politicians reflecting that. Instead, it's looking like he's going to sign a deal that is far better for Iran than Obama's Iran nuclear deal, and far worse than the status quo that we had before the war was launched. Again, Mark Levin is just apoplectic. And he writes on a very long screed on X, he said, in a period of 2 months, Israel has gone from a great ally and partner to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu being a difficult person who should be thanking us for saving his country. Well, yeah, that's right, except it didn't just take 2 months. You created this situation with a genocide that lasted over 2 years. That's the reality. It's been 2.5 years of you killing civilians and then dragging us into a war. And we may be slow to catch on, but eventually some of the people are going to figure out that they're being lied to all the time. And so people finally caught on, and Trump is understanding that he's going to try to save that to some degree. I think it's too late for him to do that. But anyway, they keep playing us. By the way, the deficit, this is all a game, but the deficit that they're creating financially is not a game. And those cards that they're holding, those credit cards, are really maxed out. Israel is now counting the ways that Netanyahu's Iran strategy has failed. An agreement appears to omit some of the most important provisions that Israel wanted, says the New York Times. Netanyahu finally got the war that he has wanted for decades. And he thought it would secure his legacy, says the New York Times, but it may end up that it would be the end of his legacy. Initial details suggest it does nothing to curb Iran's ballistic missile arsenal or its funding of regional proxies like Hezbollah or in Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen. And then the nuclear deal, the terms remain undisclosed or still to be negotiated. In other words, it's a big zero, what we're getting out of it, except it cost us over $100 billion before we gave $300 billion to Iran. Meanwhile, Israel is still continuing to kill people. Yesterday, Israelis strike South Lebanon and killed yet another person. But here's the reality, folks. This is why this is happening. It's not for any reason other than what was going on with the oil. Exxon CEO a week ago on June the 8th, okay, so now 8 days ago, the Exxon CEO delivered a blunt message on oil prices and on the economy. He said, we've been, to paraphrase what he was saying, the CEO and also the VP of Exxon, they were both speaking on a first quarter earnings call. And what they were saying about the global oil situation, they said people don't understand just how much oil was already on the water, already on tankers in transit. And we have been using that as a shock absorber to absorb some of this stuff. But he said, we're getting ready. It was a week ago. There were a lot of people that were talking about tank bottoms. We're about to get to the point where our strategic reserves and the oil that is on the water that is there, that's all about to end. And when that does, what is left is going to go down very, very quickly. They said, we've been watching those buffers drain in real time. And the two most senior voices at Exxon have now said publicly what it means for where prices are headed. This is a week ago. And so what they were saying was, said there's a lot of oil in transit on the water, a lot of inventory on the water that's been deployed in the first month of the conflict. Strategic petroleum reserves have been released. Commercial inventories have been drawn down. And he said, it takes a while for the effect to be seen. It doesn't happen right away. There's a lot of inertia in this, just like there's a lot of inertia in the tariffs. When this thing started, as soon as the tariffs started, and of course, Trump had changed them and changed them again and changed them again and changed them again. And then finally says, all right, this is what we're going to do. And immediately the MAGA people said, look, it's not raising any prices. Well, of course, it just started, right? And so what's going to happen is you're going to, with the tariffs, you have businesses that start to absorb some of those price increases, hoping that they're going to be temporary, hoping they can hold the line on it, hoping they won't be the first ones to have to raise prices. But it's usually the small guys who have the smallest pockets who have to raise prices first, and so they go out of business first. And that's the effect of this stuff. But eventually, everybody has to raise the price. Nobody has a profit margin that they can absorb 15, 20, 25% cost on their products. And that includes American manufacturers. And so it took a while for that to go through. There's a lot of stuff that's already in the pipeline. There's a lot of inventory that's already there that doesn't get affected immediately. And because it doesn't get affected immediately, people say, well, it's not a problem, right? And so the oil executives at Exxon were telling everybody it's not a question of whether the prices will rise, but when the buffers will run out. He said, we're approaching an unheard of inventory levels. I mean, really, really low levels, said the senior vice president, Neil Chapman. He said, you can debate whether we're going to hit those really low levels in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks. And so what do we have? That was a week ago. And he was saying it's 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. So Trump had to act immediately. And because even with that happening, this is going to, if they open up the Strait and they start sending stuff out on Friday, that'll be a small amount. And even the paperwork on this thing takes a week. And so it's also going to take a while for them to start getting things flowing again. And there's also been a lot of things that have been destroyed that are not going to be able to produce right away.
Interesting how this kind of recontextualizes the comments from Levin and Shapiro with, no, keep the war going. It doesn't matter that we're about to run out of oil.
They don't care. They don't care about anything. These people are so singularly focused on the greater Israel project, where God promised us all this land of the Middle East, and we're going to take all the land in the Middle East, and we don't care how many people we got to kill. We don't care if we drive the world into a global depression and a famine. I'm going to get that land. That is their singular focus. Their blinders are on with I don't know why people listen to Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin at all. I don't understand that at all. They're delusional. They are so manic and insane about this and the pushing of the war. But here's what the Exxon guys said. They said, well, okay, so we've had this buffer. There was a lot of inventory out there and stored in places. Everybody's drawn down their strategic petroleum reserves. And we had a lot of it on the water. And we're using all that up. And that's going to hit in about 2 weeks. I said a week ago. About 2 to 3 weeks is when it's going to hit. At that point, you're going to see price shoot up. A model would say that dated Brent will shoot up to $150 to $160 a gallon. And then the models will tell you, this is Exxon senior vice president. And then what does that mean for gas at the pump? He's saying that's over $6 a gallon at the low end. And that's for gasoline. And so you can imagine what it's going to do to diesel, which is more expensive. Diesel has gone up faster than gasoline, and jet fuel has gone up the fastest. It'd be catastrophic if this were to hit. And they said a week ago, we're about 2 to 3 weeks out. That's why Trump did it. No matter how much pressure his Zionist masters put on him, he had to do that, because otherwise everybody's going to be hanging this global depression around his neck, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. And it's not going to be the Mark Levins and the Ben Shapiros that are going to get blamed for all this stuff.
And of course, if diesel goes up, that increases the price of everything, because everything needs to be shipped to you.
That's right. That's right. What they were saying was gasoline prices at the pump typically follow crude moves within 2 to 4 weeks. So if you were to see that a $70 rise in the price of Brent crude, that would turn into $6 a gallon gasoline in most U.S. markets within 2 to 4 weeks. And he was saying that spike was only about 2 to 3 weeks out. That's what this is all really about. It really is about the Strait of Hormuz. And that's why the big loser in all of this is the United States, and the big winner in the geopolitics is Iran, because they've shown they control the Strait of Hormuz. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at davidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. davidknightshow.com.